haven't quite locked down our weekly time, but we will get there eventually. And until then, you just have to enjoy popping onto our Instagram and finding out when the live's going to be. But hey, Hannah, how's your day going?
Hello. Yeah, it's been good actually. It's the first day of this round of the best 90 days ever. So that's why I was frantic. Liz was like, come on, we're going live at 2.
I feel like the first day in the best 90 days is always like super buzzy. I love it when everyone's introducing themselves. In fact, I need to go and introduce myself. I forgot.
Yeah, you do.
But yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
How's your day?
Yeah, pretty good. I just took a break actually and went and met a friend for coffee, which was really nice. But I've been working on, so I'm speaking at Adobe Max later this month. I actually feel really stressed now that it's turned over into April, because now I can't say, oh, it's next month anymore. But I've just been finishing off my slides, so that's very exciting. But I've done quite a few run-throughs of my talk. So yeah, I'm like full in rehearsal mode now.
Yeah, that is so exciting. I'm excited to come and watch you.
I know. Although I was thinking about this the other day, this is a total tangent. Like, it's going to be so distracting standing up and seeing like a whole bunch of people I know in the audience.
Yeah.
I might have to do it with my eyes closed, or like just find a stranger that I don't know and just look at them the whole way through.
You might not even be able to like specifically see people.
Yeah, true.
Do you know what I mean? The lights
and actually, when I've done talks before and I've been able to see you, I have found that really helpful. So yeah, maybe. Anyway, today we're going to be chatting all about rejection. So, you know, one of my favorite topics. What is the last rejection that you had? I mean, you don't have to tell us specifics if you don't want to, but like, what's your last rejection?
Ooh. I am trying to get someone to sponsor the retreat.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I've had like a actual rejection for that, and then like a
ghosting.
A ghosting, yeah. Well, that sounds horrible. And not yet reply, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
So that was probably my most recent one, and the rest I would say are ghosting. Like they're like.
You're like,
I don't have a no.
Yeah. Sometimes that could be quite hard, because then it just doesn't feel like you can, you know, like you don't want to stick the sticker on the chart or whatever if it could become a yes. But
yeah, I feel like I'm manifesting it 100% being a no then.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
When the sticker's on the chart, it's a no.
It's a no.
Until it's like not on there, it's a maybe.
Yeah. Tricky. My
What's
one
yours?
is, well, I think I can count this as a rejection. I guess I pitched for a branding project. So like they approached me first, but then they were talking to a few different people. And so they asked me, you know, like for a meeting and to sort of put a proposal together, and I didn't get it. So that was my latest rejection. But the person that got it is someone who I think is amazing. So I was actually like super chuffed for them. So that took the sting out of the rejection. And also other stuff had come up. And so then I don't even think I would have been able to do it if they said yes. So it all kind of worked out. But it was a project that I would have really loved to do. So it did feel like a genuine rejection. But that's
good.
It is
because then you know, like when another one like that comes up, you're going to be really keen, and you've already had the experience of going for it. And
yeah, totally. And I got to put another sticker on my chart, so that was good.
That is nice.
If anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, we'll go into the whole rejection challenge in a minute, but I created sticker charts so that people can like document their rejections. So
I've got mine on the wall.
I know, yeah, yours is like right there, isn't it? Mine's
got my
over here, so I can't show it. 4.
So, I got 4.
Oh, well done.
I haven't got my glasses on, so I can't read what they are because I've written around it.
Oh, that's a good
idea. Just like one word.
Yeah, just so that you know what they are. That's cool.
Yeah, I did pitch. Well, I don't know if it was even a pitch. It was just a cheeky email. When we went away for my birthday, I sent them an email basically saying, "Do you want any content in exchange for, I don't know, money off or something like that, free stay?" Yeah, and they just didn't reply. So that is one of my rejections that's on there.
Nice. I mean, not nice, but yeah, not nice.
Not nice.
I think this is the whole thing with reframing rejection, is that you've got this mix of like negative and positive all sort of balled up into one. But then I think that's actually really reflective of like what life is like, you know, like it's very rarely all good or all bad. There's always this sort of like tension and this like mix of the two different things, isn't there?
Yeah, I like to say this or something better about like everything, that, you know, if it isn't this that is going to happen, there will be something better that's coming up. And I think that works really well for rejection, because,
Yeah.
you know, even like when we were moving house, that something else fell through and we were devastated, but we ended up getting this house, which was our dream house, because this fell through with someone else. So like you just never know what's going to happen, do you?
I think that's really helpful. And I was also, we talked about this, I can't remember which live stream it was, but in another live stream, you know, where you were talking about not taking on so much so that you have space for like the good opportunity. So it's not just about dealing with a crisis, it's about having space for the good opportunities. And I do think that sometimes I get a rejection and it feels like a sting, but actually it gives space for something even better to come along. I think it's the same thing. But I mean, that's exactly what you just said, this or something better.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we need those no's so that we have space for the yeses that are actually better for us.
Yeah. Imagine if like every time you got a rejection, you said, I can't wait to see what this is leaving space for instead. Because I really wanted this. So something really good must be coming along afterwards.
Yeah, totally. And I do think that often, like obviously it's not like a formula and this is how it always works, but often if you get like a run of rejections or you feel like you're in the sort of like depths of rejection, I do think that is often a sign that you're about to have, like, you know, there's a shift coming, you're about to have a really good, you know, like acceptance, because like that's definitely been my experience. And actually I find that with my creative process. So when I'm creating branding for clients, I mean, it doesn't stress me out as much now because I always go through it, but I always go through this dip in the middle of the project where it all feels awful and I feel like I'm never going to be able to complete the project. And that is actually now my signal that I've nearly found the solution, because it always happens. And so I think, you know, like actually now I feel encouraged when, you know, I'm getting rejections, because I'm like, okay, well, I'm pushing myself and the thing's coming. It's not here yet, but it's coming.
Yeah, I think it's so good to notice that as well, 100%. So someone asked about the rejection challenge. I can't see the names, sorry. I can just see the comments.
Which one is it? I think it's Phil. The one Phil's watching
about the rejection challenge.
Yeah, and he's watching the pharmacy.
Why don't you tell us about the rejection challenge and how it started and why you have charts?
Okay, perfect. I will try not to do I'll do the short abridged version of the story, so it doesn't take the whole life. But basically, a couple of years ago, I asked Christo to be on my podcast, and he said no. And I got all in my feelings about it and felt like really embarrassed that he'd said no. And then I caught myself thinking, oh, that didn't feel good. I'm not going to do that again. And then I had this sort of like realization, what am I missing out on? Because I'm like afraid of getting rejected again. And so, inspired by Katie Chappell, who's an illustrator who did a similar challenge, I set myself this rejection challenge where I went out hunting for rejection. And it just really inspired me to pitch more, you know, like to actually get clear on what it was I wanted. So around that time, a lot of it was like podcast related. So pitching for sponsors and like higher profile guests and things like that. And it, like the mindset shift was like immediate, because I basically made myself this win-win scenario where if I got the opportunity, amazing. It was something that I probably wouldn't have gone for before. And if I didn't, then I got to like tally it up, you know, to help me get closer to my goal. And then I guess part of it really is just exposure therapy. You know, like I recovered so much quicker the more I did it. And I got better at not making it this whole story of like what it means about me if I get rejected. And I was just able to see it a bit more, you know, like I was going to say dispassionately, not dispassionately, but, you know, like not make it such an emotional thing, make it more of a like a data thing, you know, like, okay, you know, I'm going to add this number, you know, to the list, and it's not as big a deal as it used to be. And it's just like changed everything. And then one of the things that I noticed is I started to get offered loads more opportunities, like significantly more opportunities. And at the start, it was a bit frustrating because I was like, hang on, like there was one. So Steve Folland, being freelance, I'd put his podcast on my list of ones to pitch to. And then before I even got a chance, he asked me to be on the podcast. And I was like, oh, Steve, like you've ruined it.
You've ruined it.
But
we would have said yes anyway, so you wouldn't have got
exactly.
rejection.
It wouldn't have been a rejection. But also, yeah, I think what that made me realize is that there is something in like how, like the energy and how you show up. And I think because I was like being more visible, I think being more confident because I was just like forcing myself to go, like put myself out there. Like I think that actually attracted people in a way, and then more opportunities came my way, which I never really considered, but makes sense to me now. Like I think often we forget it's not just about what we say online, you know, like your messaging takes you so far, but it's actually like the maybe energy is not the right word, you know, like the demeanor that you show up with, I think has a big impact. And I reckon you must experience that, don't you? Because you're very positive online. Like I feel like you show up in such a positive way and a confident way. I feel like that must have
just online.
Yeah, I mean you're a mess in real life. Yeah. No. I mean it is totally reflective of who you are, but as in if like there was something that was bugging you, like you're much more likely to show up with a positive spin on that than a negative spin online, which I think is like good.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as well, like what you were saying about more opportunities happening and things, I think the more you put yourself out there, the more you are just top of mind. So even if someone has read that email and gone, no, it's not quite a good fit, you know, I don't think you're quite at the stage of being on the podcast or whatever, they've still read an email from you. They've still seen your name. They've still seen your whole pitch and seen what you do. So the chances are that either they're going to think about you for another opportunity, or maybe they'll think about you for something else that they have, like someone else's opportunity. But it's just another way of getting your name out there and mentioned into these other places that you're not in at the moment.
That's such a good point. Like it's just another way to be visible, isn't it? And even though not everyone is seeing it, I mean I think that point about being top of mind is so important because like especially like with what both of us do, you know, like when someone's thinking, oh, I need branding design, like I want them to have seen a post from me on social media recently so that they think, oh, Liz does branding design. And same for you, you know, like when someone's thinking, oh, I need help with my marketing, you know, like you want them to have seen a post from you so that you're the first person that they think of.
Yeah.
I guess that's go on. No, you go.
Oh, I was gonna say, so at what point did you make the charts? So
actually quite late in. So basically, well, early on in the process, so maybe like about 6 months after I started, I interviewed Katie Chappell, who is the person who I got. So she called it the Much Nicer No Thank You Challenge. Hang on, I'm just gonna have to have a quick cough.
It's all glitz and glamour, isn't it?
I know, so glamorous. So she had done a no thank you challenge, and so I invited her onto the podcast so we could both discuss both of our experiences. And I think at that point we were like, oh, wouldn't it be fun to have a sticker chart, you know, in a kind of jokey way. Didn't think anything of it. And then I think it was like 2 years after I started, I think I felt like I'd started to stagnate a bit with the whole challenge, and I just needed like a new boost. And so I was like, it was kind of like, I really want a sticker chart, so I'm going to make one for me. I made one for me and you and our friend Lois. I made one for us three, and then I was like, I'm just going to see what people think of it, and if people want to, they can buy one. And there's still a few left, so if anyone wants one, if you're in the UK, I'll put a link after we finish the live. I'll put a link in the caption. But yeah, so I like it. I think it makes it really fun. I'm finding it so satisfying. Like what's actually really helping me, because before I just had like a Trello board or, you know, like, or a Google sheet, and actually having it there on the wall and being able to see it every day as a reminder is like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, like I need to remember to pitch for something, you know, like it just gives me a boost to keep going with it.
Because I think that is the thing that is the hardest. Like, I think I'm quite good with rejection. I can brush things off unless I don't think the rejection is fair. Because there's been like one recently where it annoyed me, and
But that was more. Yeah, the reason for the rejection
the reason
was
was
ridiculous.
if I'm just not at the stage yet where I'm not like in the place to collaborate with you, that's fine. But if it's not a fair reason, then I do get annoyed by that.
Yeah.
And but I just like struggle to think of what I could be rejected for. And I do think that is what a lot of people struggle with. It's like they want to collaborate, but they can't like picture in their mind what that could look like. And I think because there are so many ways you can collaborate, you can be a podcast guest, you can do public speaking, you can do lives on Instagram, you can do lives on YouTube. It just takes the confidence to go and ask for something different, I think. And that's how you start to get more of the rejections.
I think having the podcast definitely helped me with that, because it just meant that I had, like I can always be looking for podcast sponsors, and I'm always looking for podcast guests. So I always, those are two like really easy, constant things that I can be pitching for. Like the work one is a bit less, because obviously there is a limit to my capacity of how much work I can take on. There's a good question here from Nicole saying, do you have any techniques that you've used for turning the ghosters into a decision, even if it's a no? One of the things that I realized doing the challenge, and it feels a bit grim to me, but I do think you have to do it, is follow up. Like I do follow up with the ghosters. And the thing that encouraged me to do it is I am a ghoster. So many people pitch to me to be on the podcast, and it takes me a long time to get back to them. And sometimes it was totally a yes right when I read the email, but then I got distracted and I forgot to reply. And then they follow up and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, this was a yes. So it does work. Like it works on me. Not all the time, like I still reject some of them, but so then that made me think that I would definitely follow up. And then I've basically set a rule in my mind that I'm willing to follow. I don't always do this, but I'm willing to follow up twice. And then after that, if I haven't heard back, I leave it and I count it as a rejection.
That's a good rule. That's interesting.
And that's not comfortable to me. Like twice doesn't feel comfortable to me, but I almost feel like that's a good sign that it's the right amount, because I don't. Yeah, I think following up.
Well, that feels like too many.
To me, I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying I think partly it's like conditioning, that we have. I think it's exacerbated by being like British, like, oh no, I don't want to, like don't want to bother anyone, or don't want to like, clog up their inbox or anything, or or even just like caring too much what people think.
Yeah.
But I think if you do it in a nice, polite way, like no one's gonna really mind, and either they'll just carry on ghosting you, or they'll then finally give you a no, or you'll have given them the reminder that they needed to say yes, and so then it works out.
Yeah, or maybe a different opportunity will come up in that time, in how long you've left it. I just did pitch school with Kyra Matthews, and it was really good, and I would recommend it. And I think that really opened my eyes to how much you can follow up, and but like how they are just a person on the other end, and like
that's got
they can say yes,
inbox.
they can say no.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So yeah, I would probably do more than 2, but that's just because I don't mind doing more than 2. I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found that really interesting, and that was like quite confronting to be like, you need to be like following up more, because it does feel awkward. It does feel annoying.
And I think it varies from situation to situation. Like there's some that I didn't follow up and I just assumed it was a rejection, and then 6 months later I got a yes. So like sometimes it's just, or like I had so one of my favorites was I pitched to a amazing designer called Jessica Hish to be on the podcast. Didn't hear anything. And then about like, I think even longer than 6 months, maybe even a year later, basically what had happened was she'd been getting all of these pitches and she just felt overwhelmed. So she put them in a folder, and then I think she had a quiet period in work, and she basically just went through the folder and I think said yes to all of them. So like she
Wow.
was suddenly on a whole load of podcasts. And so then like I got a yes like a year later, which is, I mean, amazing. Like she was one of the guests that I was like so excited. She's, you know, like I've looked up to her my entire career. So like having her on the podcast was just really exciting. So yeah, I think like, you know, sometimes it's just about timing.
Yeah, I like that. Is this person not ready for the no? Fifth follow-up, that's amazing.
That's
You might as
so
well just keep
good.
going at this stage.
Yeah. But
Why not?
also, okay, so I think something else that's cool to talk about. So you say that you're not ready for the no. And there was a story that really inspired me on this. Because I think often we don't want to get the no because we think that that's the end of the story. And
Mm,
actually, you can pitch a brand again, even if they've said no. So they might say no now, but maybe in 6 months' time, you've got like a new concept or you've like something's changed or maybe their focus has changed. And I totally think you can pitch it again. And the story that convinced me to do that was a guy that I interviewed on my podcast. And I'll link the episode in the comments because honestly, it's one of the best. And it's a guy called Kyle T. Webster, and he designs brushes for Photoshop. And basically, he, I think, got to a point where he was like, oh, I'm going to, you know, like, I'm going to see if Adobe wants to buy my company. Like, his company was doing really well. And he pitched them 3 times, and they said no the first 2. And then they said yes on the 3rd. And that was like such a good reminder to me. Like he, you know, like he took that no and then he went away and made his company even better, got even more customers, and then he went back again. And like to get 2 no's, that's like a big request, right? Because that's, you know, I mean, who knows what the figures were, but I would imagine it wasn't an insignificant sum of money to buy someone's company. And so like he kept going, and I just think that really inspired me.
yeah. Yeah, because if that's the result that you want, then you just need
Yeah.
to keep going. There's so many factors, isn't there? Like timing and everything else they've got going on.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
What do you think is a good way to find things to get rejected for? Like
Yeah, that's
how if someone wants to do more rejections, where would you suggest they start with that?
I feel like this is my advice for every aspect of your business, but I think you need to go back to your goals. Like, what are the core goals of your business? So whether you're like marketing your business, whether you're designing your branding for your business, like that is the question that you always need to be coming back to, because those are all tools to help you do that. And I think it's the same with what you're pitching for. Like, what is your goal for your business? So like you know, they change over time. So we've talked about this, haven't we? Where like this year our focus is going to be getting like more speaking opportunities. So those are the sort of things I'm going to be pitching for. Or, you know, like if I want in-person speaking opportunities, I think often pitching to be on podcasts is actually really helpful because it helps you just get better at articulating your thoughts and your opinions on a topic. You know, like it helps you sort of practice. So I think work out what your goals are. You know, like if it's to work with a particularly, you know, like maybe you're a designer like me and it's to work with clients in a particular industry, well then I would be like pitching to companies in those industries, you know, like to see if I can work with them. You know, like maybe the goal is to grow your social media following, so maybe you're pitching to other creators to do collaborative posts with them, or you know, like to get in front of a new audience. I think come back to your goals, and you can have more than one, right? You don't have to just have one goal,
Oh yeah.
but like, and then make a list of what opportunities are going to help you reach those goals, and then start pitching for them.
I agree, and I would add to that to look at what other people are doing. And I know some people don't like this as a tip, but I just think, why try and reinvent the wheel? You don't obviously, like, I look at what podcast you've been on, and yeah, I do, and I look at people who are like maybe in an adjacent industry to me. So we obviously, I'm gonna pitch a completely different topic. If I get accepted, it's because they liked my pitch and they want to talk to me. But there's only going to be a certain number of podcasts that would accept me and are suitable for me to be on anyway. So
like and that's the thing. Like if I was on a design podcast, right, then that one's not going to be the right fit for you. Whereas if I'm on a marketing podcast, then that's probably going to be, since we've got very similar audiences, it's probably going to be the ideal fit for you. I think the one thing that I would say on that though is I have seen people do this where they pretty much just almost like follow behind the person.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I appear on this podcast and then 2 weeks later you appear on it. And then I appear on this podcast and then 2 weeks. Like, I think you just need to make sure that you like, go and see what they're doing, but don't almost like follow the order, you know, like don't do it so obviously. Like, look at more than one person. So find a bunch of people in your industry and, you know, make a list of podcasts based on what they're doing.
And also, I hope that doesn't sound like that's the advice I was giving.
No,
I don't think... look at Liz. No, go on the podcast she's been on.
I don't think it was, but I think sometimes when you have a particular person, I'm not saying that this is you with me, but like I've definitely had it where there's been like one particular person where I'm like, oh, I just love what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think the temptation then is to just try and emulate everything that they're doing. But I totally agree with your advice. You know, like that's how you find out about what podcasts are out there and what, you know, like what would be good ones for you to go on. But I think sometimes we're so scared of being thought of as a copycat that we we almost do the opposite, where we're like, oh, well, they've been on that, so I can't do that now.
Which is silly for both you and the podcast hosts. And I think there's the other way that you can do it is like, it's not just podcasts, it's things like look at what events they're going to that are having speakers, look at whether they're doing lives with people on Instagram, what are the kind of topics that they're choosing,
brands that they're working with.
Brands that they're working, like what are they doing?
You copy all the brands I work. No, I'm joking.
Unbelievable. That's because they love me more now.
Oh, what? Oh my goodness, we've started something now. This is where me and you have a full-blown fight on a live. No, but we do it to each other. I do it with you as well, where I'm like, oh, that was a podcast I didn't know about. And then I'm like, I think it's good.
Yeah, I do think, like you say, sometimes you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Go out and look at what other people are, like what is happening, not just what other people are doing, just what is happening. Like what are the collaborations and partnerships and things that are taking place? And then how can you make that fit your business and your goals and then you get really specific to make it about you, because otherwise it does look like you're just copying other people. But, you know, if it's specific to you and what you're talking about and the topics, like our topics don't cross over, because we talk about different things. So
I mean, they go together very well.
Yeah, they complement each other, but they don't, like,
not the same.
If you start talking about 10-minute marketing, I'll be really upset.
I know. I wouldn't dare talk about 10-minute anything. I'll be like, I've got a plan for 15 minutes.
Oh no.
No, I'm joking. Nicole said, I told you this before, I remember this, where I turned my email list into a rejection challenge to motivate me to email people more. The more people that unsubscribe, the more I know I'm working harder to sell. I love that. I think that's just totally the ethos of it. And I think you can take this concept of a rejection challenge and apply it to any aspect of your business where you feel like you're getting stuck. And I struggle with unsubscribes. Like, I love that idea, because actually see it as a win. Like, that basically it's scrubbing your list for you. You know, like, what's the point then being there if they're not going to buy from you? So yeah, I love that. That's such a good reminder. And I think, like, you can totally apply it to a specific area of your business that you want to work on.
I sent that risky email yesterday. Well, like, what I felt was risky for me, and said to you, if I look at the unsubscribes, I have to give you £20. I haven't looked.
Oh, well done. I'll guess it, because I was really hoping for that £20. I was like,
I needed that.
I was like, she's not gonna be able to resist. I was like, that'll be some easy money for me. Oh, amazing. Well, thank you so much, everyone who's joined us, and we'll keep an eye on our Instagram accounts for when the next one will be. Like, it's so fun having people like chatting with us in the comments.
Yes.
And also, if you've got any suggestions for topics that you'd like us to cover, come let us know in the DMs. We're kind of like working through a bit of a list, but we're always looking for inspiration. And I think we will be going live again next week. We'll let you know when it is. But yeah, thanks. It was so nice to speak to you, Hannah.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Bye, everyone.